Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome beauties. I am so happy to be with you here today with an episode from one of my soul sisters, Jamie, who just beams the most beautiful light. I'm sure you're going to feel that as you listen to the episode. Speaking of soul sisters, if you are looking for your own sisterhood, we would love you to join us in the Secret Witch Society community. My heart was so full recently. I put out a post in there saying, asking women what they loved about being in our group, in our sisterhood. And they said, it's a space of women coming together to love and support each other, a place to grow and expand where we feel safe and secure and supported, a place where we share the same values and together find our power and truth, a place that's aligned with values of self-healing and archetypal exploration, a place to share and hear wisdom, a place to feel safe and heard. Oh my gosh, isn't that such a beautiful and needed thing? And it just fills my heart to know that women feel that from this beautiful community that we have created. Such a magical thing. I hope you know from that description that this means that all parts of you will be welcome if you are looking for community. So if you'd like to join us, you are so welcome. Join us in the group, search Secret Witch on Facebook groups. On the Secret Witch Show today, our guest is Jamie Wozny. Jamie is a modern-day seer and priestess of the divine, and she uses her own powerful, intuitive and energetic mind, body and spirit healing gifts to assist and liberate the light seekers of this world. She does this by guiding you to embody your power, live in your flow and live as your unique divine truth, divinely connected, soul, heart and source-led. Working with her activates fulfilment of your divine mission. In this episode, Jamie and I explore how to open our hearts to miracles by embodying our inner feminine magic. We explore what our inner feminine magic even is and how the energetic shift into our feminine essence, which Jamie defines as softness, vulnerability, openness and joy, can help us come down into our bodies and open our hearts to be in the fullness of our souls. And of course, create miracles in life and help us embrace our healing gifts. Let's dive in. Welcome, Jamie. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to have you here. For everyone listening, Jamie is one of my soul sisters. So she's just the biggest ball of light and joy and feminine magic that you could imagine. So we thought, what better than to have her here on the show with us to talk about miracles and feminine magic and joy and all of that stuff. So I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. Oh, it's our pleasure. And as I do with everyone, usually, the kind of premise of my healing modality with Archetypal Apothecary is that women's stories are like so healing for other women and like yours like. So we're all kind of like archetypal remedies for each other. So my first invitation is, if you would like to share a little bit about your own journey, particularly with becoming like joyful, magical, feminine light that you are. So yeah, I'm going to pause there and just let you start that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Miss Nicole. Um, so I think it was probably 10 plus years ago, my physical body was breaking down, and which was kind of my journey into the underworld, I guess we could call it. And Western medicine at the time wasn't enough to actually help me completely thrive or flourish. So I was an actress at the time. I moved to LA to be an actress and having all sorts of weird mystery symptoms, which I had had as a child. I was always very sensitive. And I just went on this quest. I was like, I need energy healing. And because I met this Reiki master at the time. But it's funny, I wasn't one who grew up with like, some healers are like, oh yes, my mom was feeding me organic this and that when I was little, or some of us had those experiences. I didn't have that experience. I was like, thought Diet Coke was super healthy. I thought that was what it meant to be healthy. And so I feel like the universe had to kind of shut me down from the way I was living and open me up to a completely different way. So I just day by day, bit by bit, pieced myself back together, um, by finding mediumship and energy healing and emotional healing and psychic arts and all the things, that brought me to where I am today. So I was, yeah, it was this journey of sick to healed, um,
Mm.
to bring me into my magic.
Oh, I love that so much. There's so much in that, as to firstly, there's like a deep resonance with your story, which I know you know,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
we've got such similar journeys. And we were just talking before the show actually around how women who are here to be healers are typically what I call archetypal phosphorus, which is the energy of fire. And that means
Mm,
they do tend to be deeply sensitive. So I love that actually when you were speaking, I was like, oh yeah, fire, like because that's like related to being a light, right? That's what we're here for. We're here to be the light workers, the healers, the teachers, the guides of the world. But what struck me about what you were saying, and we just also talked about this, funnily enough, was like that often that comes with like this deep initiation of some kind
yeah.
into our magic. So I just wondered if you would share a little bit more about that in terms of like when we're here to talk about creating miracles, it can often seem a little bit confusing to then be like, okay, well, we're going to create miracles, but then all of this like material for liberation, as we call it, or like there's some kind of like portal of descent or initiation that often comes in before we can open to the miracles.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Art, maybe repeat the question in that for
Yeah, I
me.
was just realizing, I was like, I don't think I just made a question very clear, which I have a habit of doing. Like, I like
That's
these
okay.
conversations. So I guess my question is like, what's your sense of like the initiation part of the journey in when we're like in terms of the journey of creating miracles by being our feminine magic? Like, what's the need for that initiation?
Yeah, what's the need for the initiation? I think we can call it many different things. I don't know if I would know to do what I do today. I call them secret passageways.
Ooh, I
Like
love
these
that.
little things that I can see inside, magic, miracles, joy, feminine energy, had I not had the experiences that I had. So it's almost like, you're saying initiation, my mind comes to invitation.
Mm,
Last night I was giving a talk and I kept saying everything is either love, so we could say magic, miracle, feminine, or a call for it.
mm.
And
Ooh, I love that.
so, yeah, and so perhaps it's a like my experience was just like, oh man, the symptoms I was experiencing was just a call for more love to the truth of who I was.
Mm,
That it's okay to be sensitive, that it's okay to be powerful, that it's okay to be magical, that it's okay to be light, et cetera, et cetera.
mm. I love that so much. And I see it much the same way as I'm sure you know, is that it's yeah, it's like the way that I've kind of talked about it before and heard it talked about as well from my own guides is like it's like our gift is in the wound. And like if we hadn't
Yes.
kind of journeyed into that, then we couldn't then learn to be like the miracle, the feminine magic, the joy. I'm gonna pause there on that because I feel like that's a really complete exploration in terms of that. And I would love to know, because we're talking about creating miracles, we're talking about embracing our feminine magic and our joy. Like, can you talk a bit too? what feminine magic, miracles, and joy like actually mean, like in terms of like,
Yeah.
particularly in the context of being a healer, because I think many of the women who listen to this are women who are wanting to be healers, but maybe feeling like really stuck in that. And I think one of the things that can show up is like this kind of resistance to our feminine magic or a resistance to joy, and our kind of we often will close when we're in that initiation to creating miracles. So what do we even mean by miracles and feminine magic, or what do you mean? I think is also helpful to explore.
Yeah, I have a little story that's coming to my mind too. I think my sense is we're raised innocently in a wounded masculine society, right? Where most of
Mm.
us are taught, don't be in your body, your joy doesn't matter. Like that, like you got to just be in your shoulds, you got to be in your reasoning, you got to be in your mind, forget about joy and pleasure, forget about magic and miracles. So, especially those of us that are sensitive healers, we're just kind of trained that what's the point in that? That's not going to make me, it's not going to get me money. It's not going to help my relationships. That's not going to make me successful. Like it's frivolous, goofy thing over there. Um, there's actually a key in my gene keys, which is like an energetic blueprint thing system, that says one of my journeys is my divinity is enough. And I
Mm.
find myself going back to this over and over and over again. And I'm wrapping femininity within divinity, divine feminine. Um, that that is the medicine. Like that anything you guys feel from Nicole today or feel from me today, it's the embodiment of our essence. It's the embodiment of our light, of our divinity, of that that essence, that energy. Um, that is the impact. And I had to masculinize myself to be loved, survive, feel enough, which most of us do. So I know for me, it's been a journey of really like that is the contribution to society. That's the impact. That's what draws forth and magnetizes opportunities to me. That my joy, my light, my radiance. And the story that's coming to my mind, and I have many, but I remember once I was feeling like I couldn't get my needs across. I was in my masculine, pissed, like I want all of these things, and just kind of saying it, like this is what I want, or saying it in the masculine. And I was learning to follow my joy, follow my needs, follow my lightness, follow my radiance. And at the time I was like, this isn't doing anything. This is stupid. And I took a bath because that was where I was led. This is a very feminine act. And to this day it still happens, but I went into the bath and I had my candle and I was in this energy, I was in this joy, I was in this pleasure. And my boyfriend came in because he had to pee.
I love it.
Knock, knock, knock. And I'll tell you, the shift in his energy from me being in my medicine, just existing in the bath, he was like, you are so beautiful. I want to buy you anything you want.
Mm.
And someone might hear that and be like, whatever. But for a woman who didn't grow up able to just be in her feminine and also have somebody say, you are so beautiful. I want to give you anything I want. Now I had mascara rolling down my face. I was slumped over in not a cute position. It was my energy that he felt,
That's what
you
I was
know?
just feeling. I love that.
And so
Mm.
that to me, it's like, oh my God, child, if you are listening and you think that your feminine doesn't matter, like it softened a man's body, it softened a man's heart. And it looked in that moment like a man walking into a bathroom, into a room. But it's men, it's divine masculine, it's the other half of you, the masculine in you that's being softened. That's just an external replication of what's going on internally. So it more than matters. It's more than enough.
Mm. I'm wondering what comes up there because I completely get what you're saying and
Mhm.
completely understand when you said like it's the energetics that are changed. I'm visualizing like our women, seek all the secret witches now. Be like, okay, I'm going to get in the bath. I'm just like attract this
Yeah.
feminine energy. And yeah, I could see if it was me, I'd be like getting in the bath and I'd still be like really shitty and like, all right, well, this is,
Yeah.
I'd still be in my masculine, being like, I want
Yeah.
this and this isn't happening. And I think what's helpful to illuminate is like it feels like what you're saying, and tell me if I'm right about this, is like
Oh,
it feels like it was the energetic shift within you that he was like responding to rather than the being in the bath, although that was like an embodiment of that, if that makes sense. Is that what
it
you mean?
100%. So your external experience of what I shared may not be the bath. It may
Mm.
be so the internal, you tuning into like what would be luxurious for me? What would feel luxurious for me? What would feel softening for me? What would feel joyful for me? What do I need? These are four beautiful prompts, and then moving in that direction. So perhaps it's the bath. And a lot of times for me it's my silliness.
Ooh.
Like I will, I don't know, I have a dog who has this dinosaur dog toy, and I'm real goofy. Or I know goofy means something different for you guys, right? It's like a different word, but for us, it just means silly. Um,
That's the same.
and okay, our friend Jonathan once told me, he was like, that's a silly word in the UK. Anyway, um, I don't know. I found myself once like talking from the dinosaur, like animating it as if it was a person and making a song from it. And I will see the shift in the masculine. So my partner, who I'm speaking of a lot right now, I'll see that he was consumed and burdened, and I'll be singing from this dinosaur. Now, again, I'm not asking you to have to sing from a dinosaur. It was my authentic feminine energy in the moment, my radiance, my joy, um, which then got him to say, oh my God, you're so, again, same thing, you're so beautiful. I love you so much. You're so amazing. You're the only one for me. Now, I hear women a lot in these sensitive healers, like, because I was like this, desperate. Can anyone see me? Does anyone adore me? Does anyone cherish me? Now, I wasn't seeing or valuing those parts of the feminine. I was valuing the masculine. Let me get out there and do and push and harden and then once I found these pockets like the bath or the dinosaur, all the other things we can talk about, um, I was seeing me and valuing me, my feminine aspects and my magic and my radiance. And so then the world was able to reflect that back to me in the
Mm.
form of my partner at the time. Wow, you're so beautiful. You're so this. So um, I mean, that is medicine. Like that actually, and there's science now of how like our cells are listening. I bet if I hooked him up to an EKG and a neurotransmitter machine and all the things, you could have seen his cortisol go down. I
Mm.
wasn't trying to push or force or impress. I was in my feminine, you're in your feminine in whatever way it expresses, and you are medicine to the planet. And
I love
and I
that.
think for me, Nicole, and perhaps anybody that's listening, I didn't believe that, and I've had to over and over and over and over again go, well, look at that. Someone's in love with you when you're in your feminine. Someone wants to give to you. You're receiving, you're abundant, you're making a contribution to the world. This is
Mm.
valuable. This is enough. Like it's real. It's not just some nice thing two girls are talking about on a podcast. It's healing a body. It's shifting the
Mm.
planet.
I love that so much. There's so much gold in there. I
Yeah.
think why this is so relevant for women, the way that I see it. I mean, it's relevant in our own lives in the way that you've just beautifully explained. Like, and a lot of the work that we do in this path is about healing our feminine, and embodying like feminine magic, feminine power, feminine wildness, feminine softness. All of it. And I think this is a really beautiful conversation because one of the often driving forces, I guess, for women to enter the path is when they become healers. And like you just said, like we're just suddenly not seen. We're like, okay, I'm going to become a healer. And we go
Oh,
out there and
yeah.
then nobody sees us. And it's
Yep.
like, this is almost like the real deeper reason as to why we're not seen. And I think that story just so beautifully illustrates it. I don't know if you've got, I'm going to pause there and see if you've got anything you want to add in response to that, even though it's not a question.
Yeah, it's holding two things at once because, yes, we aren't seen when we start, and we have to offer ourselves massive compassion because we weren't seen as a healer when we were younger, most likely.
Mm,
And we start to be seen as a healer with lots of spaciousness and time when we see ourselves and our gifts. And
yes.
that is a process. Like, that's been a process. I was just talking to Nicole before we just hopped on. Like, I am constantly gaining eyes for real me, like deeper and deeper and deeper by the way that she feels, like what my healing gifts are, what the healing essence is in me that's a gift. Um, so yeah, if you feel unseen, just know the power is in your hands to slowly say out loud, I choose to see myself as a healer. And as you do,
Mm,
um, the world will then follow. And you don't have to time it. Like, I wish somebody told me that 10 years ago,
mm,
and one of our, coaches from years ago would say that to me, like, this is a 10-year process.
mm.
And I know sometimes we want to rush it and be like, well, I want to see myself now, but the process of the healer is um, regaining eyes for yourself, because we didn't go to healer school when we were little and we're like, well, these are your gifts and this is your essence and feminine energy is okay, you know?
Yeah, I love that healer school. Yeah, that's so, so true. And it feels like for me, certainly from my own journey, part of that journey has been that like deep reclamation of the feminine in order
Yeah.
to see ourselves. Like it's like being the light for ourselves first, like honoring the light of ourselves first is almost like the one of the it's kind of like later down the path in some ways in the
Yeah.
archetypal apothecary path, but like it starts with us healing ourselves first. And this I guess is what we're talking to here with like embracing our feminine magic, like owning it for ourselves first in those kind of very, maybe at first, very subtle shifts into like the feminine and the feminine embodiment piece, I think is what you were speaking to there as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what, firstly, you talked about like the feminine aspects. I'm wondering if you can define what you mean by feminine aspects. Like what is the feminine for anyone who's like, okay, I have no idea what they're talking about, this feminine stuff. Like what are the feminine aspects that you see? And then secondly, like I wonder if we can talk a little bit more about embodiment,
Yeah.
and what that could look like in practice for embracing and embodying our feminine magic.
Yeah. And the feminine, divine feminine is so complex. So this is just, feminine according to Jamie.
Mm,
Um, Hold what I'm saying loosely because there's so much more that could come into this. For me, the feminine is intuition. So getting in touch with those deeper channels, heart, love, openness, tenderness, softness, magic, inner world, flow, radiance, lightness, joy, feelings, a flow of feelings and emotions and energy moving, pleasure,
mm,
timelessness, depth. That's what when I feel into movement, dance.
mm.
So when I feel into her, that's what comes up. Those are the
I love
aspects I would
that.
say. Yeah.
I feel like you've just bathed me in this beautiful, like, it just felt beautiful. I was like, oh yeah, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
And I so feel all of that. Like, I think you've almost like just summed up some of the remedies that we work with as well, like Luna, the
Mm.
moon, and her magic, Rose and her soft, tender openness. Like there was a bit like wildness, like she wolf,
Mm-hmm.
which we can kind of resist, and then like gold, like power, the kind of so some of the elements that's what feels feminine to me. But the way you described her just feels so gorgeous. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And then I'm wondering, like in terms of, I mean, wondering what the exact question is around embodiment, but it's almost
Mhm.
like the episode title is like how to create miracles by embodying your feminine magic. It's like how can we begin to embody that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously,
And
baths.
baths and buying a dinosaur at your local toy store, talking from it. Yeah. We'll start a dinosaur club. Um, so, embodiment can be a confusing phrase. I know it was for me. And the way I see it, divine masculine is very heady. Divine masculine's beautiful, by the way. We don't want to ever hate on that. It's just we're out of
Mm,
balance a bit. Um, so I can kind of see it when I say the opposite of it. Like, divine masculine is thinking and analyzing and leading and not a lot of emotions.
mm,
It's this let's drop down past our necks into our bodies, feel our bodies, be aware of the sensations occurring in our body. Let divinity be experienced in our body through I love dance and movement, and I can really feel that light moving through my body. So it's like I'm down here and I'm in it. Um, Being in our body too, one of the biggest ways we can connect to it is feeling. And you're talking about she wolf and wildness. Um, Practicing, and there's some tools I can share, but practicing letting that emotion, that wildness, that energy just move through your body helps you be in your body. So in its simplistic form, just like aware of it, in it,
mm,
feeling it, moving it, um, listening to it.
mm. I love that you've not been overly prescriptive in that because I think so many embodiment practices out there can be
Hmm.
quite prescriptive, and it's like you
Yeah,
need to do this, this, and this, and then you'll be in your feminine. And it's like actually what I'm hearing and what you're saying is like it's kind of unique and individualized for all of us.
totally.
Mm.
Totally. Whatever makes you feel more here, more present, more alive, a
Mm.
prompt, what makes me feel most alive in my body? Can I go do that?
I love
You
that.
know?
And we were also interestingly, so we were going to talk about joy to begin with. And I'm
Hmm.
wondering if you can share a little bit more about joy and magic and how, I guess, when we're talking about embodiment, like, is joy like the indicator of that? I guess you could say.
Yeah. Joy is a compass to me. Like joy is my compass.
Mm.
And to me, it's like I've got a telephone line to Goddess, and she's saying, go here, do this. This is how you can be of the highest contribution to the planet. Again, totally not what any of us are taught. Follow what you want to be as a healer because it brings you joy or this or that. And my crew who I work with a lot, it's just constantly, can I trust that, Jamie? Can I trust that? Can I trust that? Is this rational? And for me, I've seen, my goodness, because we are energy, because then we attract that like energy to us and experiences of that energy, 100% we can trust that. It will lead us to true fulfillment. So for me, um, it's literally noticing in my body what excites me, what lights me up. And this is still a practice for me, you guys, having to devote myself or create a devotion that I will follow my joy because of how we're raised, because of what we see around us. It's easy for me to, I did it yesterday. I was working on something new. I get really excited. It requires a lot of content creation and all the things, learning. And I could have stayed inside and continued to type, but
Mm.
I know that when I follow that feeling of joy, and a lot of times I ask myself the question, and this is very Luna moon, because moon is very, what are my needs? Um, and I have to ask myself, what do I need? Because usually what I need will bring me joy.
Mm.
And so yesterday I felt this little, and sometimes it's tiny. Like I know sometimes you guys might be listening and being, because I was in a tough space when I was sick and I didn't feel joy. but it might be this tiny little sparkle, like 1% flicker in your heart. That's like, that would be nice. And it feels impossible and you can't get to it and all the things. And this is where self-love comes in. But if you're like, I'm choosing to devote to joy because I see that it's valuable, because I see that it's what will bring me the gifts that I want. I went out in nature to this beautiful spot with my dog, and I was so happy. I was so happy. And I was like, okay, and it was the best part of my day, And so that's like, joy is the point, it is so yeah.
I love that. Joy is the point, of course. Like, it makes so much sense. Yeah, I love that. I love that story. And I have my own similar experience actually, because I was very similar to you again in like being very driven, very driven. I remember going to create a circle once, and it was all about feminine, and I was like sitting at my desk working away,
Yep.
and I was like, oh, do you know what? I could just go out for a walk. And I went out for a walk, and as I was at my tree, I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to teach. And it was like, even in being just out by my tree, like that's how the feminine creates. She still
Yes.
creates, she still gets it done. Like it's just in a completely different way. So I just wanted to share that because your story reminded me of it so
Nicole,
beautifully.
that's it. That's it. And I always say, like, my little tagline recently is joy equals money in the bank. I find myself saying that a lot because the same thing happened to me yesterday. I was up there and I had this profound idea because I was in my joys, why this equals money in the bank. And I'm like, oh my God, because I work with animals as well. And I got this idea. I've never integrated human and animal work together. And
Mm.
this offering to do work with people and their pets as like a month-long experience popped into my head. And I'm like, that's so cool. So like,
Yeah, I love
you
that.
know, and so, yes, I love how you say she's creating um, but it's so much easier. Like that's the thing too. And I call that magic. I call that, you're able to do this thing and I'm up on a mountaintop and I get like a amazing extra source of income idea that's so fun. Like that's magic to me. Who teaches you that in school?
I love that.
Yeah.
There's two questions actually
Yep.
around that, because I think it'd be great to explore magic. Um there was something I wanted to talk to you though about, like you said something around women can trust that. And I think some of the women who are listening, and similarly to my own journey, like there has been this kind of deep resistance to trusting that and to trusting magic. And I'm just wondering
Yep.
if you can speak to that, or whether you've had any kind of journey yourself with trusting magic that might be helpful to share with other people who are listening.
Yeah. So this is just a basic nervous system healing, nervous system reprogramming tool where we look for proof, deconfirming evidence, and confirming evidence. So it's like, okay, you can even sit down with your journal, like, what don't I trust? And how could I disconfirm that? Like, oh, wait, I did have an experience where I was in the bathtub and I was literally existing and there was no effort and someone wanted to buy me a home. Interesting. So we would just, your brain clocks because we find proof of what we believe, which is why it's like, how can I trust that? Because we grew up in a reality where we don't trust that. We're not given proof of that. So looking at like, how could what I'm fearing to trust be wrong? Like, how could this maybe be wrong? And you're going to maybe see the tiniest little example. I'm asking you for 1% out of 100 of disconfirming evidence. And then how might I have new proof in my reality that this could be possible? Give yourself massive time and space. This is a slow and steady process. When you don't trust, you go in that next step and your brain, it's like reps at the gym. Your brain clocks, oh, wait a minute. Like Nicole just said, oh, wait a minute. I was at the top of a mountain and I got an idea. Okay, next time I'm tired at my desk, let me go do that. You might not get the idea right away. I know I don't each time, but we start to see for ourselves, not like someone telling us, we start to actually physically go, maybe this is okay. I'm actually seeing, I'm writing down proof that it is safe.
I love that so much. I really do love that. I'm gonna write my own list. Like
Yes.
I'm
Yeah, it's
loving
so,
that. Just from
yeah.
fun. It seems like that feels like a really joyful exercise in and of itself. So I
Yeah.
used to keep a list of like my manifestations and it used to blow my mind. In fact, I've probably still got it somewhere. I might go back and look at it because I know like when I've started to look for the evidence, and I guess that's what you're inviting us into here is like
Yep.
having eyes for the magic.
Yep.
Okay, I think when we start to have eyes for the magic, we start to get that evidence to inform our confidence that actually we can trust this.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that. I love that. And um, I was wondering if, and this might be quite difficult to access if you're anything like me with my memory, I was just wondering if you've got any examples of other miracles that have been created from you following and embracing your feminine magic.
So many. I'm trying to think of like some simple ones. Well, this is one from the level of one aspect of feminine magic I see is literally going into the dark and feeling your feelings. So letting them move through. So I remember specifically this, I was noticing this feminine depth of feeling fear of being abandoned and unseen had come up a couple years ago. And I sat in the feminine darkness and I brought in feminine love and I was like, it's okay to feel this. I did my processing work where I let myself welcome it. So that's an aspect of feminine magic for me because, again, we're not taught sit with your feelings, let them move through you. So within, I don't know, 15 minutes after that, I decided to take Hobbs, my dog, to the park. Normally at the park, because I had felt unseen, I was afraid of being abandoned. I was like, no one's there, no one sees me. I normally would go to the park and no one would really talk to me. I kind of like was in my own space and maybe I would have some conversations, but it was more just a reserved experience. There was a group of people having a picnic there that day, and all of them looked at me like it was like something had shifted in my field so fast. And they were like, oh my God, cool shoes. Your outfit's amazing. You're so cool. Oh my God, you're like an artist with how you put your stuff together. You're like such a fashionista. You're so beautiful. And I was like, I clocked it immediately. And I was like, oh my God, you went into the dark, the feminine darkness, you went into feminine love, you moved this energy, and immediately life reflected back
Mm.
this experience. I believe in my heart of hearts, had I not done that feminine magic healing before going to the park, I would have walked past those people. They would have not seen my beauty. They would have not seen my outfit. They would have not thought how cool I was. Um, so experiences like that.
Mm. I remember you sharing that with me actually back when it happened. Yeah, it's just that's so magical. Let me just see where I think one of the things that occurs to me about what you're just saying is
Mhm.
um like we go into again as we talked about right at the beginning that kind of initiation like to go in and heal that is so important and like there's also like a process of what I'm hearing there is like you went into it you felt it fully and then there was like an opening to a new possibility, a new story, a new way of being. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to that. I don't know if I've worded that in a way that that's a
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it feels to me one of the elements of the work that I guide women into is this opening, and I think that's such a big thing in the work of miracles. So yeah, I don't know if you've got anything to say on that.
Yeah. And as you're speaking, I'm like having this sense. It's my belief that we are already whole and complete underneath all of the pain.
Yeah.
And so knowing that there's like a soul that's outlined as the shape of Jamie or a soul that's outlined as the shape of you in there who is whole and complete and lovable and beautiful and all of these things allows us when we go into this darkness to process it, to feel it, to let it move through, that it leaves, it transmutes, it releases. So what we resist persists. And a lot of us are afraid to go into the darkness. But if we sit with for me, I felt unseen. So I said to myself, it's okay to feel unseen. I'm going to be with this energy without judging it. When we're with something unconditionally, it releases. So that hole, or that, not necessarily hole, that portal, that opening I sense that you're speaking of is you. Like, you're already here, you're whole and complete. This chunk of energy that was passed down releases. We're not resisting it anymore. Unconditional love lets that dissolve. So then your light, your truth, your soul has more space to take up shape in your body. And then life reflects back, oh, this is who I really am. This is my truth. And for me, a long time ago, I would have been terrified to do this work because I'm like, well, what's there outside of the pain? Am I just in this bottomless pit of feeling unseen? Like, but when you see, no, 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 there's another side to that. It's you. You're letting go of that which you are not, and who you are remains. So I don't know if
Mm.
that's what you're asking, but the portal is like more you, like just being visible. You were already there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I often like people when people come to work with the remedies, they often like, okay, yeah, I want to be Aurum. Like I want to be more gold and more. And it's like you're already Aurum. You're just
Yeah.
expressing the wounding of Aurum. And you
Mm,
need to love that so that you can just be Aurum's gold. And that's like feels to me what you're summing up is like we're already whole. It's just we're and this I think this ties into something that I think is also really important when we talk about miracles and manifesting is I used to think that manifestation was something to do.
yeah.
And it's like we're actually already manifesting. It's just that
Yeah.
we can often be manifesting from wounding. So I guess then my next question is like how do we well actually let's dial it back a little bit because I think one of the things we were talking before we started press record was how we can be so tempted and it's kind of conditioned in our culture to just focus on healing the wounding.
Yeah. Right.
And I think there's also this like it's like that's so important and it's like yes and I think in the
Yes.
path in the work that I guess both of us do is like there's like a yes we want to heal and be with that emotional processing the wounding and then we refocus to like the possibility. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that or speak to in that if that's kind of triggered anything for you to share more around.
Yeah. That's great. So I heard this phrase years ago, and it speaks to it well, is expanding your havingness level. So our body and our nervous system, based on our trauma, can just get used to these states, and we think it's us. And I totally agree. Where it's it's almost like I wrote a book, and the beginning of the book is about healing, and the second book is about expanding. But I believe that it's a continuous integration of both,
Mm.
where we can't just get stuck in the I'm going into the dark, going into the dark. It's like, can I retrain my nervous system a little bit at a time? Because it's not going to feel worthy and deserving of it if it isn't used to having it, to also welcome joy, to also welcome love, to also welcome magic. And a little bit at a time is enough to like expand your havingness level. There's I think it's Alan Gordon. He does like a lot of brain retraining for health things, and that's one of his tools in the course. And this is something that's helped me dramatically in my life too. Can you actually start to focus on what feels good?
Mm.
Can you practice joy? Can you practice silliness? Can you practice following your needs? I remember at the beginning of my journey, so if anybody feels like this, I feel you. I was afraid to take a bath. I was that cut off from feeling worthy and deserving of like any semblance of joy or feminine energy. It was weird. It wouldn't even occur to me to take a bath. And it was something that I loved. And so I've had to practice. And then now I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I even thought that way. I see it with innocence, but like it baffles me that I even thought that way. Um, so
Yeah.
be super tender with yourself. I don't know. I just, you see people on Instagram and social media and you're like, everybody has their stuff together. And I know for me, like I had to take these really tiny, tender steps
Mm.
in the direction of rewiring my body, because we're humans too. It's like we do have to rewire our brains and our nervous systems to like, hey, it's okay for you to also have goodness in your life. What's one, this was also in Alan's training that I'm thinking of, but they used to say, what's one small thing I can do? And that would help me, because you might even be thinking, God, going out for this hike is too much. And I feel that in my heart, but it's like way too much. So like, what feels joyful right now that's doable? Giving yourself a head massage for 30 seconds, scratching your head.
Mm.
Okay, I can do that one thing, because that will expand your capacity to focus on what feels good too. So I 100% agree with you that could you let it be an interweaving of healing and expanding at the same time, not just one or the other.
I love that so much. I love that it kind of like transported us into a conversation around like tiny little steps, because we often think we have to make these big leaps, and those big leaps can often stress our nervous systems even more. And I know
Yes.
so many women who are listening to this can struggle with just allowing that joy. I know for me, like have had to do a lot of work around that because of my
Yeah.
childhood experiences where my dad left and I lost a sister, and there was that sense of like, oh, I just can't have joy, like that's just not available for me. And it has been like this kind of process of tender little tiny steps, taking the next step
Yep.
and the next step that appears, rather than like taking huge leaps. There's been some huge leaps as well, but like it's really is the tender steps that kind of we want to celebrate ourselves for as well.
Yeah,
Mm,
totally.
I
And they
love
do
that.
they have the most impact.
Mm, yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Um, let me just see if there was anything else that I wanted to speak to you about. There was something around like taking up space. I know that's been part of both of our journeys, and I'm just wondering, I don't know exactly what the question is, but I think it feels relevant in kind of like opening to miracles. Sometimes we can feel like just opening our hearts to like something bigger, to that vision, to desire, to joy, can feel like you were talking about unworthiness. Like I'm wondering if
Mhm.
there's anything you can speak to if people are feeling like that, like if we don't feel worthy of miracles and feminine magic.
Simple step. Simple step. Allow yourself to be around people who do believe in miracles, who do experience miracles, who do feel worthy of letting more light in. That is how our brain can start to actually see proof. Wait a minute, this exists. That person is safe. That person has friends. That person isn't abandoned. Maybe it's available for me too. You start being in their energy field. You start seeing the way they think, the way they experience things. Um, and then you can start pondering, well, what if that's available for me? And they've gone on the path to open to that. Maybe it could be, you know, um, available for me too. And then a practical application too of just writing in your journal, why might I be afraid or feel unworthy of experiencing miracles?
Mm.
Um, and then what might be the medicine be? For me, I always felt really unseen when I was young. And I'm sure many of you do too, because the truth of who we are in our feminine healer leadership beauty isn't seen. So I was always so afraid, well, God, when I live this miraculous life and experiencing all this magic and I'm attracting everything that I want, I still won't be seen. That still won't be enough. So that was the wound that I needed to tend to with my own love so that I could allow more miracles and magic into my life. So, kind of get curious, like what keeps that at bay for me and what's the medicine.
Mm. I love that. Yeah. So the kind of deeper self illumination around like what is the wound that's stopping me from fully opening to miracles, which again is like that we need those tender steps into that to be able to often even open our hearts to the possibility. Mm.
And to give ourselves credit, like we've been doing this, I mean, this is my belief, lifetimes, and there's stuff piled on, and your nervous system's like you were saying in the beginning, you're killed for this, or ostracized for this, or you don't belong for this, or whatever it may be. And that's intense. So just really like give yourself credit that, that's what you've been through, and you're slowly unwinding and unraveling into that. And of course you would feel the way that you do.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. Oh, I'm just wondering if there's anything else that we haven't spoken about that feels relevant to you before we complete.
There was one story about my dad that came in that I
Ooh,
was
yeah.
feeling to share.
Please do.
It's another example of the feminine magic. And for me, as I'm feeling into this, feminine magic is also felt like to me, because, we can grow up feeling like we don't have impact
Mm.
on our surroundings. And so it doesn't feel magical. It doesn't feel light or joyful because you're like, God, I'm not impacting my environment. I'm not having, nothing's changing. So when I learned, and this seems like Nicole's she-wolf would serve with this, but when I learned to be in my wildness, one aspect of it, which was revealing the truth of my heart, which is a very feminine thing. Like, what do I feel right now? What's the truth in the moment? I started to see magic happen in my life and healing for other people. So I was visiting my father, and I was driving in the car with him. And, we had a really challenging relationship, and we've gotten so much closer over the years because of a lot of this work. And he was in an old pattern. We were in the car, and he was upset and yelling about a certain type of person that we were driving by. Well, this certain type of person that we were driving by was a descriptive of me. And so I am in the back seat and I am fuming. I feel like I'm going to shoot out of my body. It was like, this nose pierced, tattooed hippie. And I'm like, I'm a nose pierced, tattooed hippie. Like, and you're like yelling. And so I'm thinking, this is some weird something. My heart is breaking. And
Mm.
my old way of I don't have impact, nobody hears me, no one sees me, wanting to just pummel and yell in the masculine, just like, stop, meh. I took a breath, I got out of the car, and I revealed the truth of my heart. I was in my wildness, and I said, I found myself putting my hands on his hands, and I said, Dad, when you were, without blame, shame, attack, or defense,
Mm.
I said, when you were saying, so I observed, I said, when you were saying what you said about the person that we just drove past, I came out of my body. I was in so much pain. I felt um, judged and criticized and helpless. Now, this was the first time, I don't know how old I was at the time, 36, 37, 30, 35, 36. He says to me, well, Jamie, I don't want to make you feel that way. I'll stop.
Mm.
Now, I never in 36 years had gotten that response, ever, 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 which to me was like, this is magic. Wow, I'm in the truth of my heart, and I just was received. Someone heard me where I wasn't heard for 36 years, you know? And this has been time and time and time and time and time again of the retraining and new proof of when I am in the truth of my heart, it's safe. I am loved. And does that happen every single time? Not necessarily. There's an artistry and a mastery to this, because sometimes we'll have ego and we'll shame and we'll think we're like giving it to them and telling our truth, but we're not really in our
Mm.
heart. So I've had so many moments where I'm like, oh my God, that medicine, that magic shifted things. It moved the energy. It was alchemical. And isn't that amazing?
Mm. Ooh, I love everything that you've just said there. And I think this episode's actually going out after She Wolf, but it really does feel like just, yeah, She Wolf's medicine. Like what stood out to me actually was also just this like deep sense of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's almost like what the feminine magic is that like
Yes.
soft, open vulnerability of just like pure, true expression.
Yeah. And those of us that are sensitive will feel it bigger and more. And we've probably put so much on top of that of I am too needy. I'm too sensitive. No one hears this, so I'm going to shut down anyway,
Yeah.
you know? And
It's
so it
like
took me years of practice before I felt safe enough
mm,
to open that up in a triggering situation. But
yeah.
yeah, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, it's like the essence of feminine magic in many ways is the capacity to be vulnerable, which is, of course, one of the biggest wounds for sensitive women who have like learned to armor up
Yeah,
in that
vulnerable and the
space.
truth of our heart. Yeah, all
Mm.
of it.
Ooh, that was such a powerful story to complete on. Yeah, wow. Mind blowing that is.
Mind
Yeah.
blowing. And that change is possible. When a woman is in her heart, when a woman is in her feminine magic, like mountains can move. It was never something I thought was possible. That is a miracle to me. And I was
Mm.
like blown away. Wow, we are so powerful in our hearts. We are so powerful in our truth, in our feminine magic. We can be a massive contribution to the planet as such.
Mm. Yeah, there's one final point that's just brought up actually, which is a sense of like, and there's no shame in this, like, because we all do it, and it's so innocent because it's again masculine conditioning. Is we often think of miracles as like more money or a house or whatever it is that we want, and what you're speaking to there is just like the beauty of being seen, being the biggest miracle,
Yeah.
and
And
you
they come in all
flip.
shapes and sizes. Yeah, exactly. And this, in a course in miracles, it's a metaphysical text. Their definition of a miracle is a shift in perspective from fear to love.
Ooh, I love that.
And then the external, result of that shift in perspective from fear to love sometimes is healing relationships, bringing in more money,
Mm.
being on your career path. But I mean, yeah, the relief we're always looking for is coming back home to that truth of what we are.
Yes, I love that. And what's just occurred to me is it's kind of gone full circle back to the beginning where we were talking about like the energetic shifts. And
Yes,
it's like the energetic shifts will create the external manifestation of the miracles that we talk about in the masculine form.
correct.
But it's like the feminine goes first, like that energetic feminine embodiment is like the most important thing, and that can be taken into that journey of being a healer. It's like again why the healing in a healing work, the energetic work is so important, because like we approach healing and becoming a healer being like, okay, I want a business, I want this, I want 10K months, I want all of that, and it's like yes, and first the healing, the energetic healing.
Yeah, 100%. I always say that our world has that backwards. Feminine first, feminine first, feminine first. Inner, healing, feeling, being. Then from that rooted source, creation occurs.
Mm. Ooh, I got goosebumps in this story then, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful.
Um, thank you so much. This has been such a magical episode. And completely went in a different direction. I don't know really what I was expecting, but it like feels like the perfect creation of what we'd said. But like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That was magical and miraculous and joyful and all the things. I
yeah.
loved it.
It couldn't be anything less with you here. Like it's
Aw,
obviously going to be those things. Thank
thank
you,
you,
my love.
Anita. Thank you.
Oh, before we do complete, I nearly
Yes.
forgot. Where can people find out more about you and what are you working on?
Yeah, so easiest way is my website, jamiewozny.com or Instagram at Jamie Wozny. And I'm always working on different things. Right now, I have a program coming out the beginning of April called Soul Medicine.
Mm.
And that's this inner healing and transformation to come into your power. It's very Aurum based of, one who doesn't feel in their power, in their magic, in their miracles. That's a group 6-week program. So that's on my website. And then I have 2 in-person creative expression, which is very feminine, um, poetry workshops coming out in April
Ooh,
and May. So yeah, that all that stuff will be on my site.
that's very cool. And you just released a poetry book as well, haven't you?
I did. It's called Radiant Light. So it's for healers. It's for lights to
Perfectly
feel
phosphoric.
seen. Yes.
It's like the fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone who has read it has been moved in some way, shape, or form because they've felt seen or recognized in the words when the
Mm,
world before them couldn't really see or recognize them. So,
mm.
yes.
Wow, thank you so much. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. But it's been such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks, Nicole. Thanks for letting me be here. I love you to pieces.
Oh, I love you too. I loved this episode with Jamie. Here are my takeaways. We are taught that all the things that are feminine, our bodies, our softness, our tenderness, our radiance, our joy, our pleasure, our vulnerability, our depth, our hearts, don't matter, and to forget about them and be more in the masculine logic, drive, force, push. But really, it's being embodied in our feminine essence that creates miracles. It is the deeper energetic choice into that has us embody our feminine. And when we make that deeper energetic choice into our feminine magic, the world sees it and shifts how it responds to us. Being in the body helps that, and what has us embodied in our feminine essence is unique for us all. Some helpful prompts to discover how to embody your feminine magic include asking, what would feel luxurious for me? What would feel softening for me? What would feel joyful for me? What do I need? Being in our feminine actually has us create miracles without forcing. Creative ideas will flow through us when we follow the joy, though this can be hard to trust. It can be helpful to be in a journaling exercise of looking for disconfirming evidence that we can't trust magic. Look for proof of the miracles that occur when we are following our feminine joy and flow. Part of feminine magic is also being with darkness, fully feeling our feelings, letting them move through us. And so it's important to love and welcome these aspects of ourselves for deeper healing and opening to magic. It's what transmutes us to our divinity. Vulnerability is a key piece of the alchemy. When we learn to show up in the truth of our hearts, we are received and can experience our true radiance and being fully seen as who we are. And that is the biggest miracle of all. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.